If you have ever spoken at an event where there were interpreters, you've probably read these immortal words. Please send your presentations a week before the event so the interpreters can prepare. But why? And what do interpreters do with these documents anyway? I'm Dr. Jonathan Downey, this is Inside Interpreting from Integrity Languages, and that's what we're going to find out today. First, the why. Why do interpreters ask for documents before they interpret? I can answer that! It's simple. Interpreters do have really wide vocabularies, but just as most people would find it difficult to go from doing a presentation on nuclear power in the morning to being deeply involved in a debate in the re-urbanisation of previously war-torn areas in the afternoon, interpreters find themselves hopping from one specialist event to the other. And that means that it really helps if they know what's going on at your specialist event so they can prepare. Correct! But behind that answer, there's another answer. You see, interpreters don't just deal with words, they deal with people. You see, that meeting you're having with investors to try and convince them to give you more money, that's a people thing. And that conference your company's putting on to try and win more sales, that's a people thing too. And that presentation of your accounts so that everyone knows what profits are doing this year, that's also a people thing. And when interpreters know what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it, they can help you do it more effectively. So what do interpreters do with all these notes? That is a good question, which we'll answer right now. Let's start with the obvious one, the meeting agenda. To see why that's handy, we're going to go over to our special correspondent who is right now sitting at a desk. Before anyone says anything, this is a fake agenda I made up for this video because unlike AI companies, I actually care about confidentiality and privacy. Anyway, this is what a standard agenda might look like, a bunch of names or initials, and the names and times for a bunch of presentations. Nothing much useful here. Right? Wrong! To an interpreter, this gives a bunch of useful info. If people's full names and titles appear somewhere, we now have a great way to look them up. Find out what they're all about, look at what else they've written, and maybe, just maybe, find a YouTube video or podcast with them speaking, which we can use to practice interpreting them. That's going to come in really handy later. Another use of agendas is that we can match the time allotted for each presentation to the notes we have for it. That way we can tell which presentations will be delivered at a leisurely pace and which will be rushed. 35 slides in 5 minutes, prepare for a tornado! One more thing we can tell from the agenda is what shift lengths will work. Simultaneous interpreters change over roughly every 20 to 30 minutes, and if all the slots on your agenda are exactly 25 minutes long, we can time our changeovers to the end of a session to minimise disturbance. A third use of agendas in preparation is that we can use the titles of each of the items as a jumping off point for our own research. So we come prepared with the kinds of knowledge that you can assume everyone else in the room already has, but which we interpreters might not have, as we've delivered the meeting on something entirely different earlier in the week. Right, that's the agendas done. What about the presentations? Time to go back to the studio, I think. Here is a presentation. Actually, this is my presentation from a recent conference because, you know, confidentiality. But here are the kinds of things interpreters will be looking for in your presentations. Number one, what's the overall message? What are you trying to say in your presentation? What are you hoping the audience take home from it? Number two, who's the audience? Is it full of inside references and stuff only other experts will get? Or is it more straightforward and for a more general, wider audience? Those two audience groups need very different interpreting styles. Where are those specialised terms hiding? See, right here, I talk about a snowball survey. I would expect a professional interpreter to know what that meant in context. You know, I wasn't actually surveying snowballs. And I'd also expect them to be able to find out what that was in their language. And right here, I have 3 chunky quotes from other researchers. I would expect my fellow professional interpreters to see these, instantly cringe slightly, and then realise they're going to have to pre-translate them before they come up in the interpreting so that they can follow along. Generally, however, this talk doesn't have too much in the way of specialised terminology, and I'd expect interpreters to find this easy enough to interpret between European languages. I would, however, expect them to think about, looking the speaker up on YouTube in case they have some weird accent, and to see how quickly they speak. It's always good to be prepared for these things in advance. 4. How's the talk likely to go? Is the speaker going to be bouncy and full of energy? Or are there going to be lots of facts and figures? Is the speaker going to have lots of things to point at? The PowerPoint slides will usually give you a good idea of what's coming. But what if there aren't any slides? What if it's just report after report after report? No worries if the interpreters have the agenda, the list of attendees, and the reports that are going to be discussed. They can usually figure out what the main points will be, what the key terminology is going to be, and even what people might think of the reports. You'd be amazed at how important it is to understand the dynamics of an event before you get there. So with these things, the interpreters can prepare themselves well. Here's an example of that going well, and an example of it going not so well. A while back I was interpreting at an internal management meeting. The client hadn't sent me any preparatory documents, so all I knew was that the meeting was on energy efficiency. So I prepared the best that I could with the knowledge that I had. Can you guess what the meeting was actually on? Let me guess. Wind power? Nope. Guess again. Electricity? Nope. Try one more guess. Insulation? Nowhere even close. It was on the maintenance and installation of some really specific equipment for the inside of buildings. The client was not impressed that the interpreters were unable to pull super specific terminology out of nowhere. Took a while to get that one sorted out. On the opposite end of the scale, I've always been impressed by the depth and thoroughness of the preparation that we receive whenever I do interpreting on deep sea fishing. Those are really technical meetings involving experts, but they always seem to end up with an agreement, and they always seem to go off without a, if you'll pardon the pun, catch. Because when they've prepared ahead of time, it allows the interpreters to give them a really great level of service. There's one lesson from all of this. The success of your next event is largely determined before anyone even gets there. Working with interpreters by sending them really great preparation material sets you up for success. And if you'd like to work with someone who's prepared to put that amount of work into preparing for your next meeting, my contact details are in the video description. I'm Dr. Jonathan Downey, and this is Inside Interpreting from Integrity Languages.